Hello and good afternoon, good evening, and in some places like Australia, good morning. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends. And of course, I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And folks, for the next 2 hours, not only are we going to be talking about, I don't know, something happened today, NPD numbers, Starfield #1 in September. We're gonna break down the doors of the gaming community / media about how value destructive uh, Game Pass is, and Xbox gamers, you don't buy games, you just play them on Xbox Game Pass. And you know what? How about this one? No one on PC even cares about Xbox. Turns out that's the best selling place for Starfield, and we're gonna get into that interview. I mean, Phil Spencer did something that was unexpected, right? He does interviews all the time, but Phil was candid. He was the proper gentleman that we all know and love, and he gave us the answers. Listen, that a lot of us have been asking on these shows. And you know what's crazy? He gave Clobriel a shout out on the show, and shout out to Clobriel, phenomenal human being, phenomenal community member. We're going to get into all of that, and maybe that all that in a bag of chips. But let's welcome in someone that has not been here in a while, because obviously the time zones are a bit crazy. Risk it for the biscuit, sir. How the H are you, man? Great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a while. It's hard to line up times, especially obviously being in the west of Australia. A little bit easier in the east, but I'm in the west, like one of those rarities. So yeah, it's tough to line the time up, but I'm super stoked to be here. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it.
Yeah, we're going to get into the NPD sales right away. That comes the way of Matt Piscatella, great friend of the community. And like I said, a lot of tropes have been dismissed with this news. And even though Starfield is considered mid and a 7 by many outlets, it did get over 49.5s or higher. Look, I'm here for it. It's Xbox is here, man. It's here to stay, and I really think, honestly, regardless of how well Spider-Man is going to do, and it's going to do very well. I cannot wait to play it on Friday. Sony's days in first place are numbered. That is an absolute fact. I actually had someone on Twitter reach out to me and was like, "Hey, Boom, how could you say that? They just dropped a 91." Okay, and after that 91, I don't really know. But we will get into that as well. Hey, Asante, sir, how the heck are you? And you know what? I'm actually disappointed we don't get a chance to see you on camera on that new, very expensive camera that you bought, sir.
Oh, I am doing okay. I'm doing okay. It's just, work and life beat me up. Maybe I'll turn it on at some point. I just rushed in here right on time to see the footage that makes me jealous. Because some of us are retired and can sit home and play Xbox during the day.
Are you suggesting that because I recorded 6.5 hours of Halo footage? 6.5 hours.
Is that 6.5 hours straight?
Nice.
No, it was actually 2.5, 2 hours, and I started recording a fourth block, which I was almost
he had to go take a nap
show.
in between. You know what I'm saying? He had to take a nap. No, I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to be here. It's good to see you, Risk It, as usual. The man Hargeet, and yes, maybe the prima donna Everborn Saga will join us. We shall see.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I played Sonic really good.
Yeah.
I saw some footage, and I really don't want to see it because I want to experience it for myself of Mario. Oh my, wow, dude! You know what?
Sir.
You said something to me. You said something on the phone today, Asante, that you're like, you know what? I'm glad you're playing Sonic first, because once you go to Mario, it's going to be very hard to go back to Sonic. Now, listen, Sonic, no slouch. Sonic Superstars looks amazing. It plays amazing.
Plays great. Yeah.
It's probably the best Sonic in years. I mean, that's how good it is. I say don't pass it up. But Mario Wonder, and because you've been playing it, it's something special, and I can't wait to get into it. But we'll get. Like I said, we have a lot to get into. Hargeet, love the background. That actually, I think that's actually came the way Clobriel, who made that.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he did, and Phil, of course, gave him a shout out on the like during the show that about he makes these incredible graphs, and when you look at it, it's almost like looking at the periodic table. Like there's so much to see, right?
Yeah.
At that thing behind you. How are you doing, man? Welcome.
Yeah, doing well. I started up a couple of games that are leaving Game Pass in Solasta, and then I have to start up Persona 5
wow.
Royale is leaving, and that's
good luck
that's
with
only,
that, Charlie Brown.
Yeah, exactly. It's only 120, 130 hour game. Yeah, well, we got 2 weeks to finish that. Solasta is no
in the
slouch.
midst of
It's like
a release
40,
of Spider-Man, Sonic, and Mario.
I know.
Yikes.
Well, Spider-Man, I'm not going to be playing because I don't have a PS5. I sold mine, right? So I'll wait for it to come to PC. But
Okay.
Mario,
Sure.
It's already downloaded. It's going to sit there and taunt me because I will want to play it. But no, I will finish Persona before I do that. And hopefully I'll get to get Solasta finished up as well. Solasta is pretty good. For those who don't know, it's basically like a better Baldur's Gate 3. It's essentially in the same vein, but it's kind of a D&D type game, and it's got the dice roll type stuff. But like story wise, it's been so far a lot better. It at least kept me wanting to play. And the gameplay hasn't been annoying. So I don't know. So for me, it's a better BG3. But either way, if anybody wants to check it before it leaves, check it out. It's in Game Pass for now. And then Persona is Persona, right? It's a massive series. So I'll see what I can do to kind of get through that one. It's a long game. So, but yeah, that's what I've been doing. We played a little bit of Halo. Planning to play a little bit more this coming weekend. Of course, we get the content drop. So we'll be trying to get some of that content. Let's see. I think that the Halo 3 stuff coming in, right? Firefight's a little later, but yeah, we'll see what we can do. It should be fun.
Yeah, I actually just hit level 35. The battle pass is 50. I've already hit 35. Obviously, I got the 20 levels by just playing the game. I bought the 15 that you walk into with the the battle pass, and those flood armor cores are gross looking but awesome at the same time. I just cannot wait to see when you have a single player Unreal Engine 5 Halo hit with a multiplayer, because let me tell you something, the multiplayer is perfect, folks. Absolutely perfect.
It's good. Yeah,
it is. It's probably some of the best FPS combat. I would even dare say that it beats Bungie's Destiny leaps and bounds. It is. You should give it a shot. If you were unimpressed with the original release, every season since season 2, really they found their footing in season 3. Is where you start because like I said, I have 16 and a half days in Halo Infinite. Nice. And I'm going to probably have double that because I'm never going to stop playing. It is amazing. But look, let's get right into what happened today. Now, Matt Piscatella, great friend of the community, numbers guy, as we all know. Well, he's out there and he posted this earlier this morning. That these were the September 2023 top 20 best-selling premium games, dollar sales excludes add-on content, and this is a stacked deck, folks. Now this is purchased games. People bought these games, folks. Okay, so how do you suggest that I go? Should be 1 to 20 or 20 to 1? What do you guys think?
Bottom to top.
Okay, bottom to top it is. All right, so rounding out the bottom, no slouch, Diablo 4. Coming in at number 19, folks, Sea of Thieves. Like, what? Okay, all right, I like it. 18 was Elden Ring, still selling. 17, surprisingly, Gran Turismo 7 in the top 20. That's awesome. Number 16 was Rainbow Six Siege. Okay, that's not a surprise. Number 14, Minecraft. They just announced that they have sold 300 million copies. And P.S. by the way, did anyone see the Path of the Jedi an actual Minecraft Star Wars game where you could become a Jedi? Like, no one is talking about that. That to me is crazy. Number 15, Mario Kart 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, 15 was Mario Kart 8. 14 was Minecraft. 13, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Now, this is not actually a surprise because it's Halloween month. Resident Evil 4, number 12. Jedi Fallen Order came in at 11. Number 10 was Modern Warfare 2. Number 9 was Hogwarts Legacy. Number 8, a newly released game, Armor Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. Something new to the list, which was shocking, was number 7, The Crew Motorfest. And if you have Ubisoft Plus, I implore you to play it, especially if you like Forza Horizon. It is very comparable. I quite enjoy it. Not as good, but very, very comparable. Number 6 was also new, NBA 2K24. Now, number 5, the next 5 are very interesting because Payday 3 rounds out number 5, and it's an Xbox Game Pass, isn't it? Yes, it is, but people are still buying the game. Number 4 was Madden 24. Not a surprise there. Number 3 was EA Sports FC 24, which of course is FIFA or FIFA, however you want to pronounce it. Number 2, Mortal Kombat 1. And number 1, folks, Starfield from Bethesda. Brisket, what this does ultimately is curb stomp the nonsense that is Game Pass is value destructive. No one on Xbox buys games. Why would you buy the game if it's in the service? Services don't work. All of those things have been shown the door. Now, mind you, this is a game that it got a lot of controversy behind it, only because some of the media really took it hard that this was not going to release on their favorite PlayStation 5 box. And we saw that with GameSpot. We saw that with IGN. We saw that with multiple mag rags that wanted to let the world know that, hey, we gave this game a 7 because it's mid. And even though it's a mid game to some of these people, here we are in October. We get the NPD numbers, and Starfield, a game that's available in PC Game Pass and console Game Pass, still number 1 in sales. Let's talk about it.
Yes, there's a few things that going through your list too that I wanted to sort of bring up. There's a game missing, Baldur's Gate 3. I thought that would sell really, really well. Where was that? Is that not in the 20?
Well, it's below the 20. And we also found out that the sales on PlayStation were abysmal.
Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So much for the PlayStation Nation in supporting the devs. I'm just saying.
Well, look, it sort of goes to show, doesn't it? Like, and you guys will have to excuse me because I've taken to this new thing of writing stuff down as I go through the podcast, because there's usually so much that I want to say that I'll miss. So I make sure that I now write everything down. So
it's a conversational podcast and it's journalistic friendly. Write everything you want to write down, brother. It's perfectly fine.
So, well, there's that missing. RE4, that's a great game. So it was good to see that was at sitting at number 7 or something. So that's good. But Starfield,
Resident Evil 4 was 27th and moved up to 12th. That's a big jump.
12th.
Yeah,
that's a big jump. Yeah, I think maybe the DLC's got a bit to do with that. If you guys haven't played that DLC, I highly recommend it. In Australia, it was 14, so I think it'd be around about $7-8 in America. Well worth your $7-8. It goes it's around about 10 hours. You could probably push through in about 7 if you really tried. Great DLC. I just finished that up. So Starfield, we've already seen sales with that. And look, this is something that sort of annoys me that Xbox does, and I've been probably one of the only guys who's a proponent of this. I don't like how they do the early access sale thing. However, However, I mean, from a consumer point of view, I don't like that they do that. I don't like that they did it with Forza. I don't like that they did it with Starfield, but it seems like it's here to stay. And it clearly works, right? Because you already had 2 million sales out the door before the game had even released. That's probably including pre-orders as well.
1 million on each side too. With 1 million on PC and 1 million on console, which is, that's pretty impressive. A pre-release.
And I think when we hear, it is impressive, extremely impressive. And I think when we hear these guys talk about Game Pass not working, they're unable, or they have an inability to step back and look at a business model as a whole. And this is something that I'm actually putting a video together on, because I truly believe that the traditional sales model, like a lot of people believe that Game Pass sits alone, cannot exist on its own going forward. I think we're headed for a collapse if AAAs continue to just use that AAA sales model going forward, which is counter to what a lot of people think about Game Pass. What I think is, at some stages, Game Pass may take a hit. I don't think so. Not with 2.9 billion, I think was the last count when it comes to revenue. And then at some points, traditional sales models may take a hit. And Xbox has been really good at bringing all of that together. So the traditional sales models we hear about is still the largest part of their business. That's something that Phil himself has said many times, and we've heard it many times from lots of pundits around the industry, is that Xbox does make good sales. And I think this is bearing out in the numbers here with your NPDs. I was really surprised to see Payday 3 hitting number 5, especially with all the some of the problems that's had. And also the fact that it's in Game Pass,
yes,
that it's hit number 5. And then another game from Game Pass, obviously Starfield, is sitting at number 1.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's sort of that's I've been watching this go on since before Starfield's release, and we're all, obviously, not all of us, but I was a big proponent of, I think Starfield will be a generational game. And then, oh God, it came out, it's got an 80 whatever, and it's not generational. You said it was generational. You lied. You don't know what you're talking about. All that stuff. Well, I have to say to those people, you don't know what you're talking about. A generational game is not made in Metacritic. A generational game is something like Elder Scrolls. And while that did have a really good Metacritic score when it launched, it didn't make it a generational game at launch. What made it generational is the support it got from the studio, the DLCs, the decades-long support it got from the studio, the mod support it got, the DLCs it constantly got. It's still getting DLCs to this day. I don't see Starfield being any different. And I truly do believe it will be a generational game. And I think that anyone with a half a brain and who knows Bethesda's history, and you guys have to understand that I am not a Bethesda guy. I do not like Bethesda. I'm not a big fan of Bethesda games. I love Starfield, but generally not a Bethesda guy. But even I knew, not being a Bethesda guy or a Bethesda shill, that this was going to be a generational game. This is just what they do. They make generational games, and they only make them once every 10 to 20 years, right? So every game they make almost has to be a generational game. So it's good to see that there's a couple of narratives there that are being absolutely destroyed. You do have to wonder what they'll come up with next, especially after the sales of Baldur's Gate 3. I knew that was coming too, by the way, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but when Baldur's Gate 3 launched on the PlayStation, and a lot of people said it's because I live in an echo chamber. I don't think I do, but a lot of people, I like to listen to sort of everyone. I didn't see any of that on Twitter. And I was looking for the gameplay. I'm like, where is this Baldur's Gate 3? I've heard it's amazing. Everyone's talking about it until obviously it was releasing on Xbox. And then lo and behold, when it releases, all I can see is Starfield gameplay still, and Baldur's Gate was nowhere to be seen. So, yeah, I guess it's funny what we see within the hardcore community. A lot of that just has to be described as cap, especially coming from one side of the fence. But it's honestly great to see. Good for Bethesda, good for Todd Howard, and especially good to see that we're already hitting number ones. And we've just closed the ABK deal's just closed, and I'm sure eventually we'll get into that. But the ABK deal's just closed, and we're already got the number 1 game on the NPD. So I think Xbox is stepping up. And to your point that PlayStation is not going to sit at the top for forever, That's 110% true. I mean, you can see it. It might be by the end of this generation that Xbox gets a leg up, but I can see PlayStation losing its top position, especially with the cadence that they have now, and I guess I'm unsure what their next game is. Where are they going? What's their roadmap? What
no
are they
one
doing?
knows. Jim Ryan leaves in a shocking fashion. Now, we could debate for the next 2 hours whether he was fired or he just was fed up with them not seeing his vision. Sony is a very traditional Japanese company. They are very set in their ways. They want to sell you a box. They want to nickel and dime you for that box for everything with their controllers, their peripherals. They want to raise prices of games. They want to nickel and dime you on upgrades for graphics, and they want you to buy the game for the box. That's
but not
a
just
model.
that, Boom. Like a stand. They're nickel and diming you on a stand for the Slim. Like, that's insanity. Like, in Australia, you're paying $50 to stand your PS5 Slim up. That's just like, what?
It's
I couldn't believe
it's ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous. Look, at the end of the day, and I'm gonna make a bold. I'm gonna do a hey Cotton. That's a bold statement. I'm gonna make that bold statement here. If you're a fan of dodgeball, which is great, I give them 12 months in first place. But I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen and how it's gonna happen. This year, and we're gonna get into what Phil had to say regarding the regulatory gum on the shoe. They had a bunch of things that they wanted to do and that they couldn't. There's too much uncertainty. They didn't want to invest in the chance that they would lose this deal. So everything got gummed up, right? He said it. We're going to, and the second half of the show, folks, we're going to get into it. But I am telling you right now, Sony's entire business model is based on the normies, on the casual market. If you want to be froggy and give the PlayStation Nation 20% hardcore, I'll even raise you 5%. I say go crazy. Let's just say for shits and giggles, 25% of the 100% are hardcore gamers for PlayStation. Let's say that's how dominant their hardcore is. 75%, and I'm undercutting it here, folks, are the casual audience. And they play games like FIFA and like GTA and, I don't know, Call of Duty. And when Call of Duty is on a box, that's an Xbox, next year, next holiday, it is going to be no bueno for Sony. They're going to have a hard time selling their box. And you know why that is? Because they have nothing next year. Wolverine is not next year, folks. Insomniac literally just got done with Spider-Man. That's a fact. So if they don't have anything, what are they going to sell the boxes to? You're going to see a significant drop in their revenue on everything. And Microsoft next year is going to be hitting on all cylinders. It's going to be bonkers. But Kay Asante, let's bring you in on the conversation. Starfield, number 1 on NPD. Now, granted, it's probably not going to be number 1 for October because, well, Mario is probably going to be number 1. You're going to have Sonic battling out. You're going to have Spider-Man battling out. You're going to have Alan Wake 2 is going to be there somewhere. I don't know where Starfield is going to go, but it's not going to lose its luster. But the mere fact that it's number 1, even for the month that it came out, and it has surpassed, not by just a pinch, okay, leaps and bounds, 2 major exclusives one is a permanent exclusive in Final Fantasy 16, right? Nowhere on that list, right? Nowhere do we see Final Fantasy 16, right? Starfield beat it, but they also beat Baldur's Gate 3, which was, the cheering section for everyone in PlayStation Nation that were like, yeah, this is our exclusive. Starfield who? Baldur's Gate, yeah. Not on the list, brother. Let's talk about it. Okay, are you there?
I am here. I'm here. Forgive me. I was on mute.
Okay.
Forgive me. I'm absolutely here. No, honestly, I'm not surprised. it's not surprising to me at all. The attention was on this game for a long time. You know, we all knew it, and then of course the drama took control of it. But even beyond the drama, if you take a few minutes and you sit in your room or you sit in the handheld and you play this game for a little while, you understand why people are so crazy about it. You know, it is very much, as we heard, one of the main reasons why Sony wanted to make this one exclusive. It fit in their genre so well, right? So, you know, I for one say good on Microsoft for making sure that didn't happen on this occasion, because they really needed something like this, right? So as far as the success of it is concerned, I'm not surprised, man. We saw what concurrent numbers in the pre-release season, where it wasn't even the Game Pass numbers or the early bird Game Pass numbers. It happened to be people playing on Steam that was still hitting ridiculous numbers. You know what I mean? So the idea that this game can be played with your subscription service, but still is hitting the top of NPD, while impressive, is not surprising to me. It just speaks to the fact that this game caught something, right? They have what they call a zeitgeist grabber. They have one of those things that people want to talk about or want to have YouTube channels dissecting every piece of, you know, that kind of thing. If you look out there right now, there's just so many different pieces of content, all Starfield related, that you can basically get yourself like lost in for a while, because it's like Elden Ring before it captured the mind, you know, and people want to know more and more about it. So I'm definitely not surprised. I know there are many out there who may not feel the way I do about the game, but you know, it is what it is. I think it's brilliant. I'm still playing it, almost at the end.
Yeah, me too. I'm almost at the end as well. I'm playing so many games. It's ridiculous. Kay, do you want to continue, or do you want me to come back to you?
Oh, you can come back to me. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Hargi, let's bring you in over here, because there's a lot to get into. Starfield's number one. I think what this ultimately does is kick in the door for what is a narrative that has been an anti-Xbox narrative, that Game Pass is value destructive. But we as gamers, we don't buy games. PlayStation gamers, they buy games, and they buy them by leaps and bounds, right? That's what we know, or at least that's what we've been told. And I think, like I said, I think the most finite point here is that this is available in two different services. One's for PC and Game Pass, one is for console, and it still is number one. That is impressive, beyond impressive. Now, where it's going to fall in next month, we'll know mid-November, the same way we learned mid-October. But it's certainly going to potentially still be on the top 20. And like I said, you know, Spider-Man is going to be there for sure. I don't know where that's going to rank. It's going to sell very well. There's just no doubt about it. But I think next month the number one game is going to be Mario. I think that's just a given.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got a bunch of other games that are come in October as well. But you know, it's you know, it's going to be an interesting month, and Starfield will probably be in the top for a bit. You know, given the holiday season is now coming up. But there's another game that we should really mention. MLB The Show. Did that not launch in Game Pass day and date?
It did.
It's the number 10th best-selling game of the year, but I thought Game Pass was value destructive. Is that not a Sony PlayStation game? And even despite it being in Game Pass, is the 10th best-selling game of the year? In fact, if you look at the top 20 games, what PlayStation game actually makes the top 20? There's only one. It's the one in Game Pass. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's
value
ridiculous.
Destructive, is it?
Yep.
Value destructive. What a narrative. Well, gee, maybe, you know, when you can't make those games and you have to make all these games as service games instead, because your own process may be value destructive, maybe the way Microsoft's going might be the better way. Gee, perhaps you should consider that. For all those pundits out there who knew everything, So much
You,
smarter
you
than
sound
the
very
trillion-dollar
slanderous, kind sir.
the multi-trillion-dollar company that obviously doesn't know anything about markets. The one that just beat all the legislators, all the regulators, sorry. Gee, I wonder if we should maybe take their way of doing things. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Perhaps the Sony way maybe isn't working. Their leader was fired. Phil's riding high. Just saying. And the top.
We have a
game
quote from
is theirs.
Phil. He's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, these are fun little factoids. Now, yes, for the month of September, Gran Turismo 7 did perk up a little bit. Okay, cool. But you look at the top, and Sony just doesn't represent unless you're in Game Pass. And then suddenly you actually show up. I'm just saying. Now, look, Spider-Man will probably be in this, right? Because that's also
there's no doubt about it. Spider-Man's probably going to be the top 5.
I hope
being
they
facetious in any
so
way.
well.
Yeah, I think it's going to sell very well.
And I'm very happy that landed at a 91. They needed a win, and they've got one. That's awesome. I really do hope it sells well. I don't think it's going to do the numbers that Spider-Man 1 did, just because, like 2018, because the sheer number of consoles just isn't there, right? So hopefully it sells really well. They have about half the consoles they did back in 2018 when Spider-Man came out. So hopefully it does around that. I think they ended up at some 9-10 million, something like that. So let's assume it's like 6-7 million. That'd be fantastic. So great. I expect it to be in the top, in coming October. Fair enough. But for the year, is that going to make it in the top 20? I think so. I think it will. But I'm looking at some of these numbers, and if you look at Diablo, it's probably at the 10-12 million range. You look at something like RE4, it's probably like the 6-7 million range, and I'm just trying to figure out where Starfield is. So I guess it's at that 10+ million range. That's pretty good. So I guess we'll see how Spider-Man does. Starfield still has the holiday season to keep selling. By the end of the year, I'd expect it probably will, if it's not already at 10 million, be at 10 to 12 million sales.
I was going to say 10 to 12 seems about fair. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
For a game that's in both PC and console Game Pass,
yep.
You do not have to pay extra. You can just play it as part of your Game Pass subscription. Pay the $1 that all the Sony fans keep talking about. But hey, whatever.
What do you think the attach rate's going to be on that, though? Because that's, I think, I would even go so far as to give Spider-Man a bit of a pass with sales, because I don't think it's going to hit much more than 5 to 6 million, which I think is a good sale in the first month.
And I agree with Biscuit. It could be that, right? And that, I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt and say, all right, it's Spider-Man. It's this massive property, and let's face it, they haven't had any games since like freaking Ragnarok. That's if you want to count MLB The Show and all the third-party deals, fine. But this is their big first-party game this year. This is their big first-party exclusive. That's the only one they've had from Sony, right? And the last one was Ragnarok. So I'm hoping this means that people will jump into buying it. I just to give Insomniac the win, I hope they do go buy it, right? And it deserves it. It's a 91. Right. That hopefully it resonates well with the players.
Yeah.
So I hope it does really well. But to your point, Riskit, that is the problem. The attach rate was about 10% for Spider-Man.
I was literally going to say that. Yeah. 10%.
If it's 10% here, you're probably looking at 5 million. Right, which again, that's not bad. That's really good. But if they had decided, which I think they should, put it on PC day and date, you have a much larger install base. You suddenly could have made that 8 to 10 easy.
Yes.
Right. And with the 91 meta, there's going to be a lot of talk. It's going to be a lot of buzz right now. Not 2.5 years from now when they're going to release it on PC.
Even if they released it 12 months from now.
Yeah, or 3 months. 3 months, I think the buzz would still be there. But this whole 2+ year thing,
it's too much.
I'm not feeling it. It's not a good idea.
It showed up in a store, actually, Spider-Man 2. I think it showed up on somewhere in a store on PC. So I sort of get the feeling that this might be the game where they push that release on.
I hope they do, because really they could use the sales. It'll be a huge bump for them.
Yes.
And why not put it on PC? What do they really think that people who bought a PS5 are going to say? Nah, I'm not going to use my PS5. They're going to use their PS5. Don't worry about it. Just put your game where you can get those sales. That's what you need to do, right?
A couple
But anyway.
people in the chat. Shout out to ABK72, who's been a channel member for, my God, almost 2 years, 22 months, folks. Thank you so much for the generosity. He says it actually went down. It's a 90 now. So it dropped a point. Okay, so
but it's gonna be at like high 80s, low 90s. That's kind of where we were expecting this to be anyway, right? So fair enough. And look, maybe there'll be some console worriness. High 80s is a fantastic score.
It is.
It's a fantastic score.
Yeah.
Low 90s, fantastic score, right? Mario's 92. Awesome. Just fantastic, right? So if you're in the 80s or higher, that's a great game. That's a great game, and we shouldn't pile on it. Like high 80s or low 90s, whatever it ends at. It's a great land for them. I think it's awesome that they have this cool win, right? After so many losses, this is a good thing. I hope they can build on that and start getting some wins. And the next thing's gonna suck is that the new console price is gonna land right in November.
I am gonna tell you that
that's kind of annoying.
You
but...
mentioned it a couple of times, Hargeet. I don't really think people understand how poorly Sony has had a 2023.
It's bad.
Like it is disastrous. And I'm not console warring, folks. I don't have the list in front of me. I have to go into my Word docs to pull it out. But I'm going to tell you right now, the year that they have had is nothing short. It would cripple any other publisher. But Sony is Sony. They're in first place. It makes perfect sense. They can take it on the chin. They did. They released a 91. Okay, great. A 90, fantastic. I don't know if listen. I've actually had people yell at me. Boom, you talk about Spider-Man too much. You're an Xbox guy. I'm a gamer, folks. Yes. Yeah. I love Xbox, and it's my preferred platform. But I'm not going to miss out on Spider-Man. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Yeah. I'm a.
Well, it's the same with Mario. I mean, I'm absolutely playing Mario, and that game looks so good.
I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself because I'm playing Forza. I haven't beaten Starfield. I jumped into Redfall. I put another 12 hours into that. I just dropped in 2 days 10 hours in Halo Infinite since the thing dropped yesterday. Crazy. Like
so
I was up to 1 o'clock in the morning. The old man stayed up past midnight to play this game. It's just crazy. And there's just too many games.
I need to check it out. Yeah, because I downloaded it the other day, so I'm going to be pretty stoked to check it out. But Mario might be actually the Mario Wonder, and this does look good. I'm watching your gameplay, and I got to jump back into it.
Watch the 60-second gameplay. That's all I want to see. And wow, does that game just look?
It looks even better now too. Yeah. But I think it does. I think they've sort of jumped up. I don't know what they've done, but it looks shinier. That's for sure. But Mario might be the game that drags me across to Nintendo because there's been nothing over there that's really even.
Oh, I don't know. The game of the year, Tears of the Kingdom, was out. I don't know.
Man, that just didn't do it for me. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm a graphics guy. I don't know what it was, but it just wasn't doing it for me. But Mario, like an old school Mario, that looks good. That looks really good.
So good.
I would go back to that.
Asante is going to have trouble battling his kids to play it because they've been bugging him since it's been on the home screen.
That's the mistake they make, man. Or at least that's what they do to get the kids
to get off.
Yeah, every 5 minutes, man. It's crazy. So much so that my ROG ally all of a sudden becomes child's property, if you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And you know what? I kind of figured that was going to happen. You weren't going to get any playtime at all.
Indeed.
So, sorry, just one thing that just occurred to me was like this whole narrative of Xbox players don't buy games, right?
So
it's a lot of that comes from taking UK data for physical game sales, which doesn't take into account what is the market share of Xbox in that country, what market share percent is Xbox Series X versus S, where you would actually be able to buy a physical disc, right? Because the S is all digital, right? And as we've learned, the majority of the consoles are digital. They're S, they're not X, right? So if you take the market share, in general, the attach rate is similar, if not better, on the Xbox. So the reality is it's PlayStation players who don't buy games,
Yes.
It's not the other way around.
Yep.
Xbox players, the few who actually own an Xbox outside of the US, in fact, do buy games, because that's why they would go buy an Xbox, because they actually want to play games. Otherwise, they'd be the casual player that buys the PlayStation, right?
But
So
to push back on that a little
Yeah.
bit, and that's not really a pushback. It's more of agreeing an explanation as to why it is that way. And I agree with you. It is the PlayStation players that don't really buy everything. And I think that
exactly.
because it's such a massive casual pool over on the PlayStation, and I mean, I know it's just one person, but a guy that I work with, every time I walk past him, I just say Xbox just to annoy him because he has a PlayStation.
I love
He's
it.
a casual. He's a casual guy, and I've spoken to him a few times. He's like, yeah, I just don't play enough games. He's like, I maybe buy one or two. I like specific games, and I like this specific game, but I don't really, and he's like, and we've had the conversations many times. PlayStation's better, isn't it? Because it's more powerful. I'm like, no. And I'm like, well, the Game Pass conversation I have with him, which is, well, if you don't really play that many games, and you're happy to wait, because he's happy to wait. He doesn't buy them straight off the bat. He doesn't have that FOMO. And I think a lot of casual gamers are like this. And they might buy them later in the piece. Well, Game Pass is the place for you. I mean, look, Dead Space just came out on EA Play, which is now available on Game Pass Ultimate.
Yep.
And that's a fantastic AAA game. And if you haven't played that, I recommend it. But like that works for casual gamers perfectly. They don't have the FOMO, and when the game comes to Game Pass, there it is to play it. And that kind of PlayStation casual actually suits the Xbox ecosystem. And when that shift starts to happen, we might actually own the narrative that Xbox gamers don't buy games, because the casuals really don't buy a lot. But at the moment, because of that casual base, I think you're absolutely correct. It's the PlayStation guys that don't buy games.
Yep.
Listen, we're gonna see, and I don't really think it's sunk in for a lot of people. I don't think it has sunk in to the industry as a whole. We've been talking about it for 21 months, but they closed ABK. That's done. They own Call of Duty. We're gonna get into what Phil
Candy
Spencer had to
Crush.
say. They own Candy Crush. Candy Crush and Call of Duty, let's just say the mobile aspect. You think Call of Duty makes money on console? I'm here to tell you it does okay on console. They make bank in mobile. The players that it's astounding how many people actually play Call of Duty on mobile. That is now a Microsoft property. Folks, I'm here to tell you many things, but I'm here to tell you again that this is going to pay for the next acquisition. It's going to pay for Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal and IO Interactive and potentially, so many others that they're working with right now. It is Sony's in a pickle, folks. That's all I got to tell you. And they have no answer for leadership. They have no answer for a roadmap. Yes, Spider-Man, amazing. Pun totally intended. I can't wait to play it. But that's it. After that, that is all she wrote.
And that is the end of the Sean Layden era.
And that would be the end of it.
But Boom, to your point, let's not forget, Nintendo's coming up with a console that will compete with PlayStation and Xbox.
When that happens, whatever they call
good
it,
luck to Sony.
Yeah.
Those things sell. As long as they don't, fumble it. Nintendo fumbles every now and then, but if they don't fumble it, you're looking at 100 million plus console seller. It's going to do well, and it's going to have it's sure. There's a 3D Mario apparently that's in the works that comes out with that new console.
Yes,
that's going to be your system seller right then and there. It's going to come out, and everybody's going to want it, just like Breath of the Wild, right? And then you're going to all these upgrades. It's going to happen.
That's it. That's Nintendo's differentiation point. It's their IPs, right?
Yes, exactly.
And
they don't need third party, but if they come, they come.
Yeah,
they come. Yeah. And PlayStation doesn't really. Look, I mean, I know they've got The Last of Us and stuff, but they don't really have those IPs. I mean, they had them back in the PlayStation 1-2 era, but they don't really have them now. And so what differentiates, I think, PlayStation is their big AAA single-player experience. They're expensive to make, and you need to sell 10 million copies of those to really make them worthwhile. So there's that, and then we see them pivoting. But Xbox has Game Pass, and it has a lot of those little. And this is another thing that PlayStation needs. They have those little games, those little passion projects, your Pentiments. You may not like them, your Groundeds, all those. There's a lot of sprinkles on Xbox's cake, plus your Game Pass. Now, if Xbox starts making some of these, and we're getting these with Senua's Saga, these big AAA single player experiences, what does PlayStation have to differentiate from the other two consoles? I think that they are really in a bad spot.
Well, they had a dozen.
They
had a dozen gas games, one of which was supposed to be The Last of Us 2, that was supposed to eat everyone's lunch. And I don't know. They were canceled by Bungie, not by PlayStation. They were canceled by Bungie. Said, it's not good. Cancel it. And it's not on ice, folks. It's canceled.
Yeah,
Your Last of Us 2 multiplayer that everyone has been asking for is canceled. Like I said, they just do not have an answer unless they have they're holding the cards close to the vest, Kay, with a SOCOM or something, which I've been calling for years. Why don't we have a SOCOM? SOCOM, a real AAA SOCOM would be so dope on PlayStation.
They have been resting on their laurels, sir, as we've discussed. They have been sitting there enjoying the fruits of your remakes of remaster.
So the remake station.
I can't believe they're making a Last of Us 2 freaking remake. The game came out 3 years ago. What is that?
They're also bringing out the Horizon, the first one, for the PlayStation 5, and they're releasing it on PC. So it's another remaster. Why? We don't
the complete edition.
Yeah, we don't.
They didn't sell you the complete game first off. Sorry.
It's awful. You know what? Before we move to the next topic, you said the guy is teabagging me, which is very disrespectful.
Very disrespectful.
By the way, folks, the map that we were playing on was a Forge map. Did you see how good that map was? The Forge community is just crazy. It's just so good. Okay, Asante, let's talk about it, because you obviously have numerous times on the Gaming Circle podcast, which last week's, folks, if you missed it, don't miss that show. Record-breaking numbers, 500 plus people in the chat, his highest viewed video. The amount of people that came through was ridiculous. So if you missed out on it, definitely go check that out. But let's talk about Starfield being number one. And I think you're a numbers guy like myself. Mm-hmm. It's significant more than just, Starfield is number one. This game is quote unquote free in 2 services, one on PC, one on console, and it still beat out Mortal Kombat, which is a multi-plat, which is available on Switch, on Steam, on PS5, and on Xbox. That's crazy.
Absolutely. No, I don't disagree. See, I always knew it was going to do good on PC, because PC is where the mod community is, right? In between now, when the first bite of that apple is gone, and the initial people that were going to play it have played it, and now it's no longer the mystique or so magical anymore. Everybody knows what the LB and RB button does, right? Everybody knows what that is now, so that's fine. When that's gone, then it's up to the modding community to start, giving it second life, and clearly they've already started that. From a performance perspective, they've already started pushing it. I'm literally playing this game from time to time on a handheld device. Same kind of, it's not the ROG Ally, but it's same kind of specs as the ROG Ally, and I'm playing it at ultra settings at 60 frames per second on a handheld device. It's amazing. The modding community has done a lot already, and it looks like Bethesda themselves are also following suit. They're doing updates. They're fixing things. It's a big game. It's a big game, and a lot of people enjoy it. And I think after the initial, false narrative peddling BS comes and goes, it will the memory of it will last as long as Skyrim's memory has lasted. I think it's a worthy successor. So I'm not surprised at all that it's making so much money.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see. The same way PlayStation needed, the 90 for Spider-Man. Microsoft, we were all waiting, right? Like we did not know. We heard Starfield was going to be good, but we needed to play it, right? And again, this is coming off a year where Microsoft released Forza Motorsport, which is a banger. They have so they had a little bit of a dud, right? Obviously, Redfall came out, it underimpressed, and that's perfectly fine. The update, does it fix everything? It doesn't, but it makes it a heck of a lot better, especially of them keeping up with their promise of 60 frames per second, which it does run great. And then you talk about all of the other first party stuff that they have released this year. Again, not so much for me. A lot of RTS stuff. Again, not for me, but it's for people who enjoy RTS type of games. It's a pretty banger year for Microsoft. And on top of that, I don't know, they closed ABK. It's what could you say? It's just a great year for Xbox, and it's great for Bethesda, who obviously just saw the retirement of Pete Hines. We talked about that, Kay and I, we talked about it yesterday on the Xbox Factor podcast. There's some people that think that there's a little bit more to it. I just think that he, made a lot of money with the purchase of when Bethesda was purchased. And he's been with the company for 24 years. It's time to retire.
I don't know. I don't think you can, if there is more to it, I don't think you can fully direct it as it's a Microsoft thing. I think that Heinz is one of those guys who doesn't like to not have the driver's seat.
Yes. Yep.
And I think that's if there's more to it, it's from that angle. But look, I spoke to the guy. I'm pretty sure Huggy spoke to the guy as well. He is just a passionate about Bethesda. He was really passionate about Bethesda and the games that they make and what we thought. Now, I told the same thing to everyone. I wasn't interested until in Starfield really until I saw that that direct at Games Fest, and I got to speak to him afterwards. And I think he asked me, I put a tweet out, but I think he asked me more questions than I asked him. He was really curious as to why, what I thought, what changed my mind, what kind of games do I like. He's just a really nice dude. So I really do wish him all the best. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you watch the interview with Phil, right, he did go over that. It didn't seem like it was anything, but then again, things could be hidden. But he was all, he just seemed to congratulate him and he, was happy and proud of him and whatever. And it didn't seem like there was any negative there.
No, and I think with Pete, you'll see we'll find out if there is anything there. We're going to know in about a year, maybe two.
Yeah,
because he will say something. I mean, we saw him at the trial. He sort of slipped up there a few times. So, maybe that's got something to do with it. That's what people are possibly thinking. But look, I just think he's that kind of guy that wants to be in the driver's seat and wants to steer the ship. And I think Bethesda is just as much his baby as it is Todd Howard's baby. And there's obviously deep personal feelings there. So if there is anything, I don't think it's anything negative towards Xbox itself.
Right.
It might just be negative towards, an acquisition. I mean, but
look, the one that makes the most sense, if it was anything, would be Redfall, right? Because that you'd have to blame somebody for that failure, and maybe you'd blame him. I don't know if you do or don't, whatever it is, but
he's the leader there. He's in charge of marketing. He ultimately he's responsible for that.
Yeah. So and under the Phil era when Bethesda was bought, he was actually the one reporting into Phil, right? So he was running the Bethesda arm or the ZeniMax arm. So at that level, you might want to say he's responsible for that. I don't know if they would go after him for that. But if you had to pick something, that would be it. Mm-hmm. I don't think the trial had anything to do with it. I think that that's what he felt, and when you're in the court, you just tell the truth, right? That's
you have to tell the truth. That's what
I felt. That's what I felt, right? So I don't think Microsoft can really retaliate on.
I listen. There's been some pretty interesting takes. Microsoft's vision, folks, has changed. Killer Phil. He's here, and we're going to get into what he had to say. Meaning, he's here. He's here to stay. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. And Microsoft, yes, this is a business. Yes, he's got to He's got to, answer to investors, all of that. That's great. But at the same time, they have been number 3 for many, many years. And they find themselves in a very, very strong position. They're not taking prisoners. They're not going to be happy with second place. They want first place. And they're going to get it. And they're going to take it from PlayStation. That's a fact. May not happen now. May even happen next year. PlayStation is in trouble. They're directionless. They're leaderless, right? They're not the same animal they once were. They have been defanged. Yes, they have a bunch of great IPs coming out. Whenever Ghost of Tsushima 2 comes out, I'm there day one. I'm platinum in, just like I platinum the first one. But we don't know much what they're doing. And look, like I said, the Pete Hines leaving. Mrs. Boom and I congratulated him publicly. I think that's magnificent. I've been retired since 2014. You get here, it's great. The water's great. So I'm happy for him that he did retire. And he's retiring on the highest of high notes. Redfall, number 1 on NPD. Still it's a generational game, folks. I don't care what you say. This game is being played in so many different ways. It's bonkers. And the stories that we've all been telling are crazy. And that's one game. That's not 10 games. It's one game. And we have all these different stories that we're telling. Generational games do that. This game is generational. And look, at the end of the day, I'm happy for Starfield being number 1. I think it does knock down the door of the narrative, especially from the gaming media and the gaming community who talk about, economics or whatever other ridiculousness that they go out there and they're pulling numbers out of their ass. Listen, it's number 1, and you can get the game technically for free on 2 different services that are both Game Pass. So I don't know what to say, but we got to talk about that Phil Spencer interview. And my God, there's a lot to get into, folks. Before we get there, we catch up on the super chats. There's been quite a few of them. Carlos Alvarado drops a very generous $2 super chat and says Halo Infinite is topping Steam in the seller charts right now. That's not surprising. Season 5 is amazing. B Martin 001 drops a very generous $10 super chat and says Super Mario Brothers Wonder currently 93 on Metacritic. I cannot wait to play it on Friday. Spider-Man 2. Alvin drops a very generous $5 super chat. He has an admission. Says Hargeet, a month ago, I super chatted Mario Wonder won't get nominated because it's 2D. I may have spoken too soon, brother.
On its way. It's gonna be in there.
Omerta War drops, who has been a channel member for 2 months. So Omerta, thank you so much for that. He says, good show, guys. Listening while I check out the D4 season. D4. What am I missing? What's D4? What's he talking about? I don't know what season 4. Throw another message in there, brother, and I'll definitely give you credit for it. I'm not sure, but listen, it's we appreciate you listening, and hopefully you're enjoying it as much as we are being behind the mic. Highlander 001 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Starfield is a long-term relationship. Spider-Man 2 is a one-night stand. I will pick up Spider-Man 2 used at GameStop next week after people beat it. I mean, you're not wrong.
Is D4 Diablo 4? Maybe
he's talking about maybe it's Diablo 4. Yeah. It is a new season. That's exactly what he meant. Thank you for that. Yeah, listen, Diablo 4, something of blood, season of the blood like that, or something like that. I haven't. You know what's crazy? What's disgraceful? Mrs. Boom and I have not even played Diablo 4. This year it's been a very busy year. And it's one of the games that I just have not got into. I haven't even played Mortal Kombat 1. Like, I'm a fraud, folks. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I got 80 hours in Redfall, no hours in Mortal Kombat. I should be ashamed of myself. DJ Birdo, DOS, welcome back, brother. Nice to see you in the chat. He drops a very generous $2 super chat. Says, Hargeet, throw a tremendous in there for me.
Tremendous.
I love it. Waleed is now a game cat, specifically a white tiger. Drops a very generous $2 super chat. Wow, that is such a name. So the PlayStation VR 2.0 and its amazing lineup doesn't count.
No.
What
is-
amazing
No, it doesn't.
lineup.
Let me
No,
jump in
I-
and say that. Like,
I think he's being
what was
facetious. I don't think
Yeah.
he's being for real because
Okay, cool.
did you see anyone see the ACG review of the Horizon
Call
VR
of the Mountain?
game?
Call of the
Yeah,
Mountain?
it was.
Call of-
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. He says
Yeah, well,
it's not a good
I
VR game,
wanted-
but it's even a worse Horizon game.
Oh, you bought it?
I wanted that to do well. I wanted PSVR 2 to do well because I initially was going to get it straight away, but then I looked at the history of PSVR 1 because I wasn't too sure. And I wasn't too versed on the history of VR with PlayStation. So I looked into that. They stopped supporting that after a year. So I was like, all right,
Yep.
I'm going to hold out on this. And I was right. Like, I really wanted it to do well, but I didn't think it was going to. And it's not doing well. And
It's
they need
terrible,
to
dude.
support. They need to support the hardware that they've sold to people. It's the right thing to do. If you sell hardware, you need to support it with software. And they really haven't done that. And it's really disappointing because I want to get PSVR 2 and get into it. But I'm not going to do that without games.
If you wanted to get something, I would highly recommend the MetaQuest 3 instead. I just don't see the value. Like, I've always been waiting for that AR, the mixed reality and the AR. And that's what they're giving you. They give you VR plus AR.
Yeah.
It's $500 to enter. And you can play whatever you want. It's I would recommend that instead, and that's supporting
high praise
VR and AR.
from both Kay and everyone with MetaQuest 3. Yeah,
I don't know how much it is out there, but it's 500 here. But
yeah, there it is. Look, yeah, there it is. In the
I'd recommend that instead. And I would like people to actually support that because I want AR to continue. AR is the future. I want AR to continue, so I hope people do support this.
No. I believe it. So I also believe. Look, I believe that VR, going into the far-flung future is, VR and AR and all that has a place. I don't know if as Acicles and Pancake games will always have a place when it comes to VR and AR. And so I like to see companies stepping that forward. But when they don't support it with software, I can't support them. So yeah, I'll probably look into that MetaQuest.
Definitely check it out. Let's real quick. THX1138 drops a very generous $2 super chat and says Spider-Man Meta 87, Miles Meta 83, Amazing Spider-Man 2 Meta 90. I mean, listen, they're all great games. They're all high 80. It's fantastic. I know Miles, a lot of people down on it. 83 is still a great score, folks. I don't know what world do we live in? An 83 is not a good score. I don't,
That's really, really
I
good.
don't know. Whatever. It's weird.
A lot of
gotten into
Highlander
Sony land.
bangers are in the 80s. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. Highlander 001 drops an additional $5 super chat and says Sony is selling off their financial services to raise money, I guess, for acquisitions. If Sony is not worried, then they have then they would have not have the COO step in. No, folks. Let me tell you this right now. The mere fact that someone within SIE, PlayStation, did not take over tells you everything that you honestly need to know. The fact that someone from Sony proper took over, that is where they're in trouble. But we're here to talk about Phil Spencer's interview, folks. And there's a lot to get into. Now, Brisket, I want to go to you first because you're our special guest. And I pulled up a quote that Everborn Saga put into the chat. And this was from the interview. This is from Phil Spencer when he was sitting down on the Xbox, episode 5 of the new Xbox podcast, which is phenomenal. We're missing Larry. I would not heard anything from Larry Herb. Hopefully he's enjoying his retirement. But yeah, it's a great show. You should definitely check it out. And this is what Phil had to say, Brisket. I'm more excited about being here than I've ever been. I mean, it's simple, right? It's just a couple of words, but it's incredibly powerful. He's not going to retire anytime soon. I say Phil maybe got another 5 to 7 years under his belt. He's definitely got a major publisher acquisition and at least a half a dozen to 8 additional studios. That's my take on it. One big publisher, 6 to 8 studios, and then I think after that they're done. I think they're gonna and you know what? I really want to give a shout out to Pong Soul, because he came up with this analogy I think is phenomenal. He said that Microsoft is almost completed building the moat, meaning what they're doing is protecting themselves from an industry that's going to eat itself up. And Apple's going to get involved. Google's gone. You know what I'm saying? So they're gone. Apple's going to get involved at some point. Amazon is going to get involved in some point. And if they get another publisher, specifically in the East, and they get those 6 to 8 studios like an IO, like a Crystal D, like a Eidos Montreal, a few of the other ones that they're working with. Avalanche Studios is a really good one. Absobo's another great one. They could be self-sustained. They'll have they're going to have their every genre is going to be covered. Fighting is going to be covered with Killer Instinct. They're going to have all of these different studios. I mean, they have currently 34 named studios, a total of 44 from what I understand. And those are all the support studios. They're in fantastic shape. I'm very interested, Brisket, to get what you pulled away from this like 25-minute interview with Phil Spencer, specifically outlining when the content was finally going to hit Game Pass.
Yeah, so there's a lot. There's a lot there. With the content, I always saw that coming. So I think a lot of us always saw that coming, especially when you look at a lot of people thought it was going to be like Bethesda. And I think if you go back and look at Xbox's history with Bethesda, they had already had a few games go through Game Pass. And so that pipeline was already there. So expecting, and we know what Bobby Kotick thinks of subscription services. He's not great on it. So there's no pipeline there to bring these games through to Game Pass. So that to me was fully expected. That was always going to happen. Not disappointed about that at all. If it's 2024 and they start dropping games in, that's absolutely that does not bother me in the least. A couple of things that did bother me about this though that I wanted to sort of point out. So I'll go through the negatives. I don't like the podcast format that he's doing, or that they're doing, that Xbox is doing. I think they're cutting our lunch. And I think you can. Here's the thing: you can trust a podcast from a Boom, from a K, from a Hargate, from a me, from a dealer, because we'll tell you what we really think. And then if you're going to have a podcast from a conglomerate company, even if it is Xbox, it's not something that I want to watch, because I don't. Again, I find it hard to trust
you
the truth.
prefer the candid opinions and not the company told line, is what you're saying.
Exactly that.
Okay.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, very fair.
The Xbox,
very fair.
If you're listening, get rid of that podcast format. Just maybe have a conversation, do interviews. And no offense to the guys who are running that podcast, they're doing a great job, but it's just obviously a corporate thing. So stop doing that. But then to Phil, so some of the things that he said, like they're quite telling. Said he visited King first, or he's going to be visiting King first.
Yeah. He's probably there now, right?
Yeah.
That shows you the focus. And I mean, Jedi Knight Pete, one of the panel members on my show, said it, and I booed him for it, but he was probably on the money. That's no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear like mobile's going to be the thing they focus
but it's
on.
so big, right? 60%, 70% of their revenue is like mobile, and it's like, geez, it's a big
exactly
deal.
that. He's going to go straight to mobile, and he's going to be talking to them about what are they doing now, what do they got planned for the future, what do they want to do, what do they need, all those things. He's going to be directing towards mobile, and unfortunately, with that, we're visiting King first. That shows you where his focus is. So I mean, again, something that they've said that's proven out to be true. They said it many, many, many times. This is not about COD. This is about mobile. I mean, they didn't go to Activision first and start talking about COD. They went to King first. So I mean, as annoying as that is for me personally, because obviously I'm a console guy, and probably all you guys in the chat the same. You want him to go straight to Activision, or you want him to go straight to Blizzard, or let's get a Hexen going, let's get a this going, let's get a StarCraft going. But unfortunately, that's just not his focus. I wish it were, but it's just not. And so to your publishers thing as well. So this a lot of guys are going to disagree with me on this. So two more things I've got. So the publishers, I don't want them to buy publishers, and I hope they don't. I don't want them to completely stop and put the brakes on. But they're going to get to a point where it's too far, a bridge too far for me. I'm not like King David. I don't want them to buy everything. I want an open, I want a fair, and I want a free market. And I want a market that's healthy for consumers. For me, it's a selfish thing. And I know that people look at Microsoft buying up publishers as a selfish thing because it's going to Game Pass. But I can tell you, and we've seen it already with Microsoft, they raised prices where they felt comfortable to do so. And if they've bought up too many publishers, they're going to feel really, really, really comfortable. And that means that they'll feel comfortable to raise prices. We don't want that. We want a healthy, strong PlayStation. If Google comes in, I doubt it. Great. Amazon comes in, I think so. Great. Apple comes in, we've got competition. Great. That's what we want. To what I want them to buy, yes, Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal. That's the next two I want them to go after. I want them to lean heavily on the fact that Embracer is struggling at the moment. I want them to lean hard onto that. When we talk, the amount of money that Embracer paid for Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal was an absolute song. I think if Microsoft comes in and just throws a cool single billion, 900 million, 800 million, Embracer's made a lot of money out of that purchase. Obviously you've got to look at what they've spent in the meantime. They're developing Tomb Raider, all that sort of stuff. So like say throw a cool billion at it, Microsoft could do that easy, and I don't think that'd be an issue with the regulators. I'm sure it would have to go through that regulation process. I can't remember what the keystone is for
100 million.
that, but 100 million. But I don't think that would be an issue going through the regulators, and I don't think that anyone else
just
except
one studio,
the FTC.
not an entire publisher. So yeah.
Exactly. And I don't think anyone except for the FTC has the stomach to continue fighting Microsoft at the moment. So, yeah. And now to Phil's excited to be here. And I said this in a chat that I'm in. Kay's in it too. So Kay would have seen this. And so a lot of the guys were saying that Phil's excited to be here, blah, blah, blah. Surprising. Maybe they thought Phil was stepping down. I thought so, maybe it's, Phil's time. He's put on and I love Phil and I'm not having a go, but he's put on a bit of weight. He's gained a few gray hairs, probably like us all. And I can't talk. And he looks, and he has had some rough runs since 2014. They have had some really, and not just rough months, they have had some rough years. And he has managed to right the ship. It's a slow ship. He turned it round. He has done amazing things for the brand. He's acquired ABK. He's acquired Bethesda. We've got games now. He's brought Game Pass to the brand. Everything that he has done has righted this ship and made it successful. But I do not think he hasn't had his opus moment. He hasn't had.
Someone literally just said that. I don't know who we were talking to that literally just said he has not had that one, just the one.
Yeah, that huge thing where no one can deny that Phil's nailed it. Just that game, or it could be a game, but it could just a moment where, yes, Microsoft is it. There's at the moment, there's still questions. We can question the management. We can still question the cadence. We can question lots of things, and he can be questioned right now. And there hasn't been. He has not yet achieved, I think, that Sean Layden sort of almost godlike status where Sean walked out of the PlayStation 4, and I don't know why the executives at PlayStation didn't see this as pretty much a god of gaming.
Well, they certainly treated him with the most disrespect possible. Like that dude wasn't heard for 2 years after he left. It was gross how they treated Sean Layden, honestly.
Yeah. And he turned the brand around. PlayStation is what it is today because of the things that Sean Layden put in place early in the PlayStation 4 generation. And we didn't see until 2016. But after 2016, it was hit after hit. And I think Microsoft is at that point. Phil Spencer's at that point. But they haven't made it to their 2016 yet. They've got their foot on PlayStation's neck. And I hope they press hard. Really, really hard in the nice Microsoft way. The way that they do, the way that Phil does that. But it's not yet. And I think if Phil would leave, now maybe into the next couple of years, it would be a disservice to his entire career. So I didn't think he would be leaving now, and I'm waiting for that moment. There'll be a moment where I'm like, he's done it, and I think he's going to leave, but it's not yet. And I'm glad to see it because Phil has been fantastic for the brand. He's turned it around. A lot of guys kicked back on that and said he's done this and he's done this, done this. And I'm not saying that because he hasn't had that one that he hasn't done great things. He has done great things for the brand. He saved Xbox, for God's sakes. I know a lot of people will argue with that.
Yes, I don't think people give enough credit for that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. He had that conversation with Satya. He said, I think I can turn it around. And he got to work. And that's what he did. He's turning it around. We're not quite there yet. We're not pointing at the North Star yet, but we're almost there. He's almost there. So I think when he gets to that point, we may see him retire. And that'll be a sad day for me because he is a great man, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, good point. A lot of really great points. Kay Asante, are you there, kind sir?
Indeed, I am.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the interview. I don't want to say it took everyone by surprise.
Mhm.
I think it was needed, but I think the finite point I want to make here is many of the things that I mean, listen, these questions he knows they're gonna right? They're in the Microsoft building, for crying out loud. So he knew what they were gonna ask. But what I found to be very interesting, Kay, is many of those questions seem to be talking points on our shows, not specifically Double Barrel Gaming, but the conversations that Riskit has had with his crew, and you have had, and Hargeet have had on numerous podcasts, on Game On Daily. These are conversations that are happening. When is the content coming? What are we going to do with old IPs? They're listening. They're listening.
Absolutely.
They might even be listening to this show right now, and I know that they are, which is pretty freaking dope. Okay, but here's my question to you. This was a powerful interview. A lot of people expected it. Some people were taken by surprise. People were looking for the Bethesda moment. That's not going to happen because obviously Bobby K is still there. He's there to the end of the year. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't think anybody wants to see Bobby K sitting down with Phil Spencer to talk about Activision because he's not going to have a say. What he says may not even matter today, right? Like he is just basically on a waiting pattern to get his bags of money that he's going to get, his $20 million, and he's going to go and buy an island somewhere and you never hear from him again. That's fine. So I don't think we're going to get that kind of round table thing. But he answered a lot of questions. What were your personal takeaways here?
Honestly, my takeaway was the rejuvenation. You see him out there. You see him talking to basically addressing, like you said, addressing us, because these are the conversations we've had for quite some time now, right? And you can definitely tell that they've been listening because there's a lot. They addressed them specifically, specifically questions that we have asked. They addressed. So honestly, I like me personally, I'm just happy to see the rejuvenation there, right? It seems like this has been successful to a point where now they're at the starting line, right? And some of us have said that as well, right? They are finally at the starting line. Now they can start making that vision come to fruition. He looked kind of tired because back in the day, because they weren't getting to that starting line and they weren't able to get to a place where they can now think that they have enough to compete. And here we are with it, right? So I'm super excited to see that he is ready for that fight, right? He's ready to compete. He's ready to jump in the waters and continue onward. What I thought was super interesting, and I know Riskit was saying something to the effect of, he was hoping where he went initially was telling, and of course it's going to be mobile, like obviously. When you have a spigot that prints money, ain't you going to go see that wonder of the world first? It's a spigot. It prints money. What are we talking about here? That's the first thing we go and see, right? But what he did say, which was super interesting, was he's not going to stop anybody. He's not going to mandate what they do, but he's also not going to stop them from having interesting ideas. Meaning, now that just like we are like completely losing our minds and going, oh my God, imagine all the things they could do together. So are they, right? So are the various developers that now are all under their one purview, right? So if somebody comes to Microsoft with a good idea, or comes to Phil Spencer with a good idea, he may be busy over here getting the App Store going and getting his mobile on, but that does not mean we won't get cool, interesting rejuvenations of old platform or old games that we wanted, because some passionate developer wants to go off and go do that, right? They're not so laser focused in this one direction that you won't be getting what you want, and they'll need to not be that way, right? Because they have so many IPs now and so many developers now and so many eyeballs they now need to feed that you can't let it all funnel through Phil Spencer. Like, that's a little too short-sighted. It would take too long to get things done, right? There should be stuff coming out all the time, right? And they should be touching various aspects of it at all times. Not everything will be, well, Phil's going to go and do the mobile thing, and then when he's done, he's going to double back, and then he's going to see who's going to greenlight this project. And that, no, there should be 15, 12 projects greenlit at any given time of various degrees in quality, some mobile, some not mobile, right? And we should be surprised to find that out when they decide to announce it later in the project's development cycle. And it shouldn't all be funneled through Phil, because for a long time now, yeah, you have 1 game, 2 game, 3 game. I was criticizing Phil, why the heck didn't you play Redfall before it released? There's a world where you won't be able to play all the games before they release, because there's a lot of them coming out at the same time, right? So, I don't think necessarily that him focusing solely, not solely, but him focusing on mobile is detrimental to console and PC gaming necessarily, right? There's still a chance. They've already talked really glowingly about all the IPs they look forward to bringing back, things like that. So, I hope and pray. Maybe this is my Pollyanna view of it, but I think there's hope there. I'm just excited for the page to finally turn. There's been a lot of, wait, it's gonna happen one day. It's gonna happen. Oh Lord, when it happens, it's gonna be amazing. And now all the excuses have to be washed away. You can no longer say, oh, they don't have the IPs. They no longer have the studios. Oh, who's gonna make their fighting game? Who's gonna make this? Who's gonna make that? They have deep benches of pedigree within their ranks now, like very deep benches. IPs for days, right? Technology engines for weeks. They have, people talk smack about the Series S. They have one of the only third parties who has a claim to fame of making 120 frames Series S games. They have them in pocket now. So we shall see how they execute and where it all falls. Now it's just an exciting thing as watching as paint dries as they get all this stuff together. It's going to take some time. About the Game Pass Day 1 stuff, it is a little unfortunate that that's how it turned out to be, right? Because
but at least he was forthcoming about that.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I think that I don't know. I'll put it this way.
Mhm.
I did not. I saw VGC cover this.
Mhm.
I did not see many of the publications. Now, I also saw, of course, Jez Corden of Windows Central covered it as well. He had an amazing article. Didn't see too many of the media covering what Phil had to say. And honestly, I'm not surprised, because I still think that there's a lot of really bad blood that Microsoft closed this deal. I really believe that there is some real discontent with the media. Now, how long that's going to last?
People don't like it. People don't like it. I've seen that being spread out a lot. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I really don't. I think that's the consensus, that they just don't like it. That they wish it wasn't there. I've seen a few folks like express that. And
really poor takes.
It's what it is. Yeah, I agree. It is what it is, and it's in poor takes. And we'll see. Ultimately, will the clicks demand that you start speaking in better terms? Hey, we shall see, as they are now. As people now take Xbox more seriously. We'll see if that's where it goes. I'm just looking forward to seeing what are the initial moves they make, right? Because it's unfortunate to me. True, it's good that he came forth and was very forthcoming about it. It's surprising to me that there was nothing they could do from a Game Pass perspective in the short term. I know that there's a whole inclusion process that has to happen in order for Game Pass to be for them to be able to put games in Game Pass and all of that. None of that was possible until the very last minute, so it is what it is. I'm hoping that something happens of a Christmas surprise or something where they drop something interesting into Game Pass, because they have a lot of interesting things that they could potentially do. So hey,
Yeah.
I think it's all positive at this point. We'll see how long it takes before anything turns around. I mean, think about it. Starfield came out when? How long have they owned Bethesda? It's taken a long time for you to reach that point where you go, wow, they took care of it, right? I mean, not everybody can be Insomniac and play and Sony, right? Say what you will. The moment they bought those guys and they used them as a horse, and they've been riding them dudes ever since. And it's been working out for them like gold ever since. So,
Are you saying that Sony has
worked.
been riding them like a go-go dance from Soul Train? Is that what you're saying?
Oh man, all the way to the bank, sir, to the bank. And as I hear it, Spider-Man 2 is no different. So there you go.
And for all of my movie buffs, I'm not sure how many people saw the movie Who's the Man? My brother Neil.
Oh
Mental.
Lord, of course.
We have seen it 100 times. It's one of our favorite films. It stars Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, and it's a homage to hip hop. What can I say, the 90s? But that's where that's from.
Classic.
But you know what? Great points all around. Great point. Listen, Hargeet, let's get your hot take on this, because Phil had a lot to say, and you know what? Keasante is not wrong. He said it. He was disappointed. The holdup was the regulators. I don't know, because it's funny. During Sunday's Iron Lords, they had on Tom Warren of The Verge, and he made some. I mean, he had a lot of really great things to say, because obviously he has connections in the CMA, he has connections in Microsoft, and he made mention, Harky, that this deal was pretty much done since July. And I'm hearing Phil now say that they unfortunately they were stuck. They could not make a lot of the Game Pass drops that people are expecting happen. Kind of goes against that. So I don't know, like where this actually ultimately goes. In 2024 is what Clobriel said. That's how he actually mentioned Clobriel. 2024 is going to be the big drops. Activision Blizzard had actually said that Call of Duty and Diablo would be arriving in 2024. We kind of poo-pooed it. Like, that's got to be, that just toned the line because they want to sell games. What was the biggest thing, your personal biggest takeaway from this? Because like I said, it was Phil being who Phil is. He's candid. He's a proper gentleman. He answered it. You can tell that he was disappointed. He wears it on himself, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, look, so I know Riskit doesn't like the format, but I actually think it's better than what they had before.
Yeah.
Major Nelson is fine, but it just didn't have the same energy. I think this is a little bit better. So I kind of like this new format.
But they're cutting our lunch, Huggy. They're cutting our lunch. I don't like that.
Yeah, look, we still exist, right? So we can certainly give our opinions, and if they want to do something and tell us about what's going on in their world, what the heck, right? It's another source of information. And look, we're all talking about an interview that they did, right? Granted, yep, it's internal. They can totally control every part of that messaging. But to what you said, Boom, Jeff has been listening to us. Rubenstein, right? He's been listening to us. And he actually brought that up. Like, what I'm hearing from the community. These are the things I'm hearing, right? Let's just ask those questions. And, obviously it's good that we are asking those questions, right? That they're listening and they're going to try to answer those things. That's a good thing. So I don't mind the format. It is what it is. The downside is it's not very consistent. Like, it isn't like it's at this time every time, right? So it's not like this day and date, at this time, which is a little annoying. But either way, so I don't mind the format. It's good that we're getting nuggets of information from it. So there's a lot to take from there that was mostly just about kind of what the next steps are. It's also interesting that they were able to work with ZeniMax ahead of time because they were sure the deal was going through to
Right.
say, okay, we're going to have these games drop in when we, finish this deal, when we close the deal. And they couldn't do that. And he said they weren't sure even the week of the closing of like actually
Yes.
buying, that they weren't sure it was going to go through. They were, whereas with ZeniMax, it was like, yeah, this is done. It doesn't matter. Right. But I think they got shell shocked. Phil was shell shocked when the CMA said, we're going to block this on cloud gaming. And so they did nothing. They said, we'll just wait and see what happens next until they, can finally start doing things. I found a few things that were interesting was, first, as you mentioned, the mobile piece, right? You have to look at mobile in an interesting light. They have Game Pass, right? And they're promising everything goes day and date in Game Pass. Well,
Yep.
The mobile games don't have to worry about that, right? Even if they went into Game Pass, they're usually free to play, but they're constant streams of revenue, massive billions of dollars of revenue. That's something they just need, right? And it's the thing that Jim Ryan was going after, but Phil's already had it, right? They had Minecraft, which just keeps on printing money, right? And they got small, other games that were started small but have become live games. You got Sea of Thieves that just keeps going, right? And they'll keep.
It was in the
creating
top
more and more
20
like that.
of sales, but NPD.
Exactly.
It's crazy
for sales. A game in Game Pass. It is what it is, and so they're just constantly generating revenue with season passes and whatnot, right? So they're already kind of there, and that keeps the revenue flow for other things to be made as well, right? So it's very interesting and telling that is where he wants to go. Obviously, that's a big deal for them, right? This is just the money that's going to allow them to A, pay for all those salaries that they just took on, and B, look at what they can do in that mobile space with their other IP, right? Certainly Activision Blizzard comes with a bunch of stuff, but, like Warzone, is there an opportunity to move Halo in there? Is there an opportunity for a Gears game that actually sticks and lands, right? They had... Was it Gears Pop, and there was something else, right? But it didn't
Gears
really
Pop.
go anywhere.
Yeah, no, it was.
Is there an opportunity there with their other IP, right? They've got all these other.
Do you know what
potentials.
fits in there well? Do you know what fits in there really, really well? Sea of Thieves would really fit well in mobile. I don't think that would be too difficult to bring across.
Potentially, right? I mean, and we'll let
That'd
them
be
figure it out.
huge,
But that's the thing that this is going to be one of those, and it's not Phil's going to push it, right? Phil's going to ask, what do you guys think, right? And I think that was one of the biggest ones, was he is actually going to just let the studios go, right? Do what you want to do. That's fantastic news. But then there's a big question. They also bought this with all these freaking arrangements with Nintendo and Sony and all these other cloud gaming companies that you're going to get COD for 10 years. Does that mean COD has to come out every year? Does that mean that the entirety of Activision and whatever is just stuck on COD?
I don't. That's a very interesting question, and one that we actually don't know because we don't have the contract in front of us. But I am here to tell you that I think that they're going to get to at least a by-year release schedule.
I hope they do. I hope they slow it down.
Give these studios a break.
And part of it is I just look at the last 6-7 years. Half those games are remakes. They just don't have any ideas left.
Nope.
Right? And I just, at some point, you just need to say, slow it down.
Yep.
Let's come up with a new concept for Call of Duty to reinvigorate itself, right? Yes, you could remake Black Ops. You could remake whatever other ones that we've had, Advanced Warfighter or whatever, Infinite, whatever they have had, all the different ones they've had. But, why? Why not just slow it down? Let the studios go do some other things, right? And let them retool, and let's come back with something new in that Call of Duty franchise. But you keep Warzone going, and
you're
multiplayer
absolutely
going.
right. You bang on with that, I think, and I think, the answer wouldn't be. And I think we've had this discussion, me and you, Huggy, probably not on show, but the answer I think there is go live service. And now the pushback on that is always going to be
Warzone. They have it.
Yeah. It makes $70 every time they, per release every time they release a new one.
But it's still selling. It's still selling
with Game Pass now. the opportunity is there to go. What you're saying is once every 2 years, or maybe once
Yeah.
every 3 years, free up the studios, Toys for Bob, these little studios to start making smaller titles to give a ridiculous amount of cadence going into Game Pass.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge opportunity for them. And if they
Yeah,
don't do that, a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I hope that the studios come back and say that, right? That, look, Call of Duty's great. That's nice. But we'd like to do something else. We'd like to make something totally different. Or, hey, we have this cool new IP idea. We'd like to try that out. Or, what if we took something that we have in our existing catalog? I had this kind of a weird mix with a totally different way to do it or whatever. So I want to see those kind of things, right? Like, let's take something, make something new out of it, or just take some new ideas they have and make a new game. I hope that's what ends up happening. And again, it's probably going to be years before we see anything, obviously, but hopefully that is the direction. And so we'll see if the COD engine is slowed down a bit. And they're not locked into annual releases, because I don't think it's really necessary. What they need to do is keep the multiplayer going. Content packs, new season stuff, right? You can just update Modern Warfare 3, continuously keep updating that to keep giving you more and more stuff, right? That's what they should do. And Warzone is going to be there too, right? So they'll keep making that money with that, keep giving you more capability with that, right? So I think that's probably the right. But I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but that's what it seems like, right? His idea is, I'm going to let the studios tell me what they want to do. Cool. This is not the Bobby Kotick way at all, right? This is not the Bobby Kotick way, right? So that's going to be very interesting.
Will they let them out of the salt mines? That's the thing. Like, I think it's Pong calls it the salt mines. Like, so many are in the salt mines when it comes to COD.
That's Case Ante's saying the salt mines is Call of Duty.
Yeah, and I hope that's the case, right? So we will see if that's a massive shift. I'd also like to see what happens with Blizzard, which has been commercialized too much instead of making the games they used to make that were really good. I think if they go back to their formula and say, no, we want this to be the Blizzard of old, right? Let's see what they do with that, right? And hopefully that can come back and be even bigger and better than they were, before, they were bought. But I guess while they were with ABK, I can't deny that they actually made a lot of money. But there's some, diminishing return to that. Like, Diablo, 4 for folks who are Diablo fans, they would have dropped everything else to play that, right? But you didn't, right? And that happened. And so you have to like kind of take that into account and say, well, maybe they do need to kind of like revamp a little bit there. There's StarCraft that they could go back to, right?
Dude, that would be, especially in Asia, if they brought back StarCraft mobile, holy, it would be as big as anything King could do.
Yeah. So, and to your point, Brisket, about buying, I think they have to buy a publisher in Asia. And the reason is simply 100%. It's the splash. You need to have something that says we're here, right? And if you buy a small thing here and there, I agree in general with what you're saying. I only wanted to buy really one, maybe two, right? But the one would be something in Asia that just gives them the splash. We're here. We mean business. We're not just like a little nobody on the side, which is what they are. Let's just be honest. Across Asia.
You mean like Capcom, right? Like Capcom?
No, it wouldn't be Capcom. But because they're not Asian. Anyway, whatever. We've had those discussions. Like, it needs to be something that's so relevant to the Asian market that they're like, oh, we kind of have to pay attention to this, right? And that's what I'm looking for. Well, that's what they need to look for. But I think that's what they need to do is like say, let's make a splash. We need to have something that tells, in Asia, I think they have like under 1% in general of market share. It's so abysmal, right? That you have to do something to kickstart it and say we need to, generate some buzz.
I mean, some people keep saying Square Enix is the play. I
could be or Sega. I think Sega is pretty good. Especially with Rovio and all that. But so either one of those, flip a coin. I don't care. There's plenty of opportunity, but they need to buy one of those. The other one that's a potential, and I don't know if they need to go down this path or not, but is the potential to get something like a Warner, right? To get the movie side of it plus the studio side of it, right? That gives them the IP that they kind of need. But I don't know if they can work a deal and just get the studios or not, but that's up to them to figure out. But that would be the only like publisher level things I think they should really go after. You might have smaller publishers that like, what's the indie publisher there? like Devolver or somebody like that. There's another one that
I would love. Could you imagine? That would be ridiculous.
Right, but so I wouldn't go with bigger things after that. I think at that point you should be done, right? But smaller studios here and there, indie studios here and there, I think is a good thing, right? But an interesting point to that, right? So at some point they will have kind of the same thing Nintendo has, where their first party is more than enough to bring people to their platform, right? And it's definitely going to generate the revenue, right? We've been looking at when will they be at that. Am I frozen? I don't know, for some reason my video seems frozen, but so at some point,
frozen, yeah.
Yeah, the revenue part of it, they might be number one pretty soon. The console sales, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, right? So that would require them to be very prominent in Asia, which I don't know if that happens in a gen or two or not. But as far as revenue, I think they're potentially going to be there pretty soon. As far as monthly active users, they're already done. It's already there. Right,
Yes.
they're significantly ahead of everybody else. All you need really is Minecraft, and you've already won. Right, Minecraft is so huge. We just ignore it, but it's so huge that wins them right there. On top of that, they just got ABK with hundreds of millions, 400 whatever it is million monthly active users. It's ridiculous how big they've become now. Right, as far as monthly active users. Right, so that part they already are number one. They're done. Right, so they don't have to really worry about that piece. It's more, can they get to the revenue level? And I think they're like this close. They're very close to doing that. If and I don't want to pile on Sony, right? Because we should be talking about the fun of what we got with all this stuff. If Sony does not turn it around and really all those live games fail, it could be quite a detriment to their bottom line, right? And,
100%.
and you don't want to see that
People are
happen.
gonna lose confidence, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to see that happen, but look, they have an opportunity. Obviously, they saw something was up. They're going to go to a different leader, and we'll see what that does, right? So if they flip it around and they bring it back, okay, cool. That might take years, right? Because once you kind of put these games in play, it could be a while.
I don't think
before
that's
they
going to
come
happen.
back.
Because if you look at Sony proper, they've had some very, very, very serious missteps with their business. So much so that they are no longer the giant that they once were, in the late 80s, early 90s, even the early 80s. And they have not innovated quickly enough.
That is a problem. It is a problem.
They have not seen where the market is heading quickly enough and taken steps to follow it. So that's Sony proper, and I feel the same is happening now, trickling down to PlayStation. And this is something, again, I am actually making a video on this because I am quite passionate about it. But Sony is sort of the litmus test, or I think what we're seeing as an early result of the entirety of AAA publishing, because AAA followed Sony's example for a while there. And they went after those big, AAA single player experiences, as well as going after the live service market. Couple successful, mostly not. And what really I think needs to happen, and if Xbox, sure, buy publishers in Japan, do that, but that does not guarantee you success. It doesn't guarantee you the splash. What's going to guarantee you the splash is if you start making new IPs and IPs that are successful. And to do that, what you need to do is throw a lot of IPs at the wall. Excuse the language, Boom, but throw shit at a wall and hope something sticks.
That's fine.
Now that's the best way to come out on top here.
And they're doing
Xbox
that, right?
Are doing it, and PlayStation,
which I like,
and so do the AAA publishers. The AAA publishers need to start making some of these smaller experiences with new IP, and then they can build on those experiences and make them larger.
I agree. You got to do both, right? Because you don't know which one of those games turns out to be the next Fortnite, right? You want an indie to come up with something, weird, and it picks, right? It just takes, it lands. If that happens, and that's how you do it. You do small investments into indie type ideas and let that potentially become something big, right? If you instead spend hundreds of millions of dollars, now you're looking for a return. And as you said before, you need to sell like 10 million copies to make that back. It's a lot of investment. Like if you spend $250 just making it, you have to spend another 100 just advertising it, right? $350 million. That's a lot of sales before you get that back. It's insane amount of pressure then put on the publisher and the developer to make a game that will land, that will get people to buy that many copies, right? You could potentially say that Last of Us 2 was a failure because it barely made 10 million sales. That should not have happened. That should have been a 20 million sales game, right? Last of Us 1 was a critical and financial massive success, right? And where did it go with the next installment, right? That's just not good. Right? That is a gamble that they kind of just barely, got to profitability. That's not what they were looking for. I'm sure they were looking for much more money to come with that thing. But
and Hargeet's explaining there defines exactly why it is you see all the remakes of remasters.
Indeed,
exactly.
Because
100%,
you have to. They can't afford to play with new IPs that may or may not hit. You must know
it's sad,
Aloy,
right? But that's
whoever,
not what we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. The entire industry has become extremely risk averse. Like they're avoiding risk by renting IPs and rebooting IPs and remastering IPs, and we see it from Sony the most. And I don't think Sony sort of knows where it wants to go. I don't think they've got the right idea. I think they jumped on the live service train way too late. That's huge amount of risk as well. I think they're seeing it as less of a risk, but if you were to put that on a risk register, I would have that as, somewhere in the high area. I wouldn't be putting all of my eggs into that basket. And always, even when you see it with stock markets and businesses and all sorts of things, the businesses that are successful that put lots of little eggs into lots of little different baskets, and then one of them will hit, and that's all they need. And that's where the gaming industry needs to go, especially in this time of consolidation. And that's happening with whether Microsoft does it or not. That's happening.
Yeah. If you want to look at one that's doing that, a publisher that went the wrong way first was EA. And then they turned it around and said, you know what? Maybe we do need to kind of play that game. And you look at It Takes Two, right? That's a EA published game. And it's game of the year, right? Fantastic game, right? That studio is unbelievable, and they take these risks. They don't miss, small man.
They really don't.
Studios, right? And like Immortals of Avium was also them, right? Potentially pretty good game, but maybe not as financially successful. But hopefully it does kind of come up, right? But these are the things, right? So they're at least trying. And then they hold everything together with the FIFA as well. Now it's a FC, whatever it is, and the Maddens and whatever, right? Those games kind of keep them afloat, right? So they have that, and then they potentially can try the smaller things, and hopefully some of them land. But I think that's what you need to see. I think you're right, Risky. Some like publishers are like Activision. I mean, do we have to go much further? Usually. Activision was like, let's take everybody. I don't want to make anything else. All we're gonna do is make Call of Duty. Because that sells, right? It's like the absolute opposite. Like, let those studios make other things, right? Like Call of Duty's cool, but we need like other games. We need like other things to actually round out the
unfortunately
portfolio.
That worked. That actually, unfortunately, it actually worked. Like it really worked, and it worked in a big way. And then all the AAAs look at that and go, "Well, that's the way we find an IP and we double down on it." And I think Ubisoft has done that with Assassin's Creed. But then I think in the recent years that they was trying to go, right, let's turn all of our games into a sort of a live service model. We saw it with Ghost. Oh God, what's the name of that? That's great. Was a great game. I can't think of the name right now. X-Defiant. Well, not X-Defiant. The other one they were going to make into a battle royale, and they cancelled it. They were taking old IPs and throwing them all in. I can't think of the name. Throwing them all into live service. The name will come to me. I'm sure someone in the chat will probably pop it up in a minute. Ghost Recon, that's the name. They were doing that with all their IPs, and now we've seen a slight change. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the Prince of Persia. Side-scrolling, smaller game. They'll start, and I think they're starting to make some of these smaller games, and they're going to see how they go. I think that Prince of Persia is a toe in the water to see if they can bring back the Prince of Persia.
Yeah, I hope it's good. I hope it turns out to be a good, successful game.
A return to like classic form of Prince of Persia. That's a series that needs to come back in a big way.
Yeah,
and another way for them to do it, and a way that Ubisoft is actually really well positioned now to do so, is you budget a game at say 5 million, a smaller game, and you sell that game to a subscription service or put it in your own. say like Game Pass or even PS Plus, and you say, look, we want 10 million for this, our budget's 5 million, boom, you've just made 5 million off the bat, guaranteed.
Yeah.
You know it's down the line coming, and you need to do that 2 or 3 times a year. That's 15 million. You can throw that money at maybe a bigger AAA or whatever it is you need to, or just keep it as profit. But there's at the moment, what's been happening is, and I think Phil put it perfectly, is AAA has made a moat out of their major IPs. And it's just not working. And if AAAs don't do something to change, they will singularly either collapse themselves, and possibly, even if it happens all at once, collapse the entire industry. And this is why it's really strange to me when people don't look at the industry as a whole and analyze it as a whole, especially PlayStation guys, and don't see what Microsoft is seeing and doing to prevent that, because they may actually be the last bastion at some point if AAAs don't change. But I think we're starting to see a slight shift, and I do hope that happens. But I started to look down the line a few months ago at where we could end up. And at that time, it's a few months ago, especially before the Fans Fest, it was looking very much like we could be headed for a collapse, which is like horrible news. I don't want my hobby, collapsing and us ending up with, major publishers going down or being consolidated into a big publisher like Embracer, and then seeing massive layoffs and studios disappearing. And a little taste of it is what we're seeing now with Embracer. They overbet their hand, and now they're paying for it. And so it's a concern.
For Microsoft to get in there and pick up at least those 2 studios. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing with Microsoft, with Xbox, is that they are Microsoft, right? So Embracer would have to go to banks to get more money, and they need investment, whereas Microsoft can just say, okay, we'll give you something for a couple of years, and then you need to pay us back, right? But it ultimately is just funny money inside Microsoft, and so they could survive or sustain it. But we'll see. We'll see how this all goes. But yeah, I think the interview was cool. It does give us some ideas. It would be nice to have a like an actual media site do it, or maybe one of us, right? One of our community do some interviews with Phil or whatever, and that happens, every now and then, right? So, but yeah. But that was what I took from it. Obviously a lot more to come. Yes. Right, sometime in early January, maybe we'll start to see some of the changes. Some of the things I've been thinking. I think they need to split the A, the B, and the K. From being under Activision. I don't see the point in being under Activision. I'm not sure if that's allowed because of the gamers lawsuit still going on, and they may be required to keep the structure the way it is, which is kind of bogus. But I think Blizzard should just be its own publishing arm, reporting into Phil, et cetera, right? So yeah, I don't see the point of keeping them under Activision unless there's some specific structural reason to do that. They publish their own games. They don't have any other tie to Call of Duty or anything. So I would suggest they split them up. But we'll see what they do with it. And then who becomes the leader of Activision becomes the big question. So we'll see who he puts in place. Obviously, Bobby's out in a couple of months. Yep. Which is kind of good, I guess, right? So
good, but surprising.
Yeah, a lot of people were surprised by that.
I expected 3 to 6 months. That was what he would stay on 3 to 6 months to give them time to kind of cut over, right? If there's any questions on how they need to do things, they'll have them around.
Okay. Surprising and concerning, then I would say.
Why would
you say a lot of things? Yeah, you could say a lot of things about Bobby, but one of the things you can say with absolute certainty is he is an extremely shrewd businessman, and he knows that business backwards and forwards, which is why he's no longer on the board but still there. And the board answers to him. I don't care what anyone says. That they do. Yeah. And he is a terrible human being, but an extremely shrewd businessman. And I think biffing him in, I don't know if that's a word in America, but in Australia, biffing is throwing out. I think biffing him in 3 months is a huge risk, unless you. And we already know they haven't been in there sort of working out their pipelines and working together on how this is going to go. And we've already seen some missteps from Redfall, not to harken back to that. And that's not completely Microsoft's fault, but there's also that concern about the integration and the management of that integration, then the management of everything that's already still, in machinations over there. It's going, games that are happening. I don't know if I would be letting him go within 3 to 6 months. I think that's maybe a little bit early. I'd probably keep him on for a year, and it's a concern.
No,
I don't know.
that would be the PR disaster. But look, I put it to this way: the whole Bobby thing could be another 2-hour podcast by itself. What I want to do is this: I do want to catch up on the super chats, and then we're gonna get everyone out of here. 2 hours. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I saw a lot of new names here. Hopefully that comes the way of many people that listen to Risk It for the Biscuit. If you're finding the channel for the first time, please consider subscribing. We are on the hunt, folks, to 14K. We're at the halfway mark. We're at 13.5 right now. We're actually at 13.550. So if you want to help us get there, I would be greatly appreciated. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you're feeling incredibly generous, consider hitting the bell icon so every time I go live, you get the notification. I do this Monday through Friday, 5 live shows, all different panels, great content. We never use hate mongering or clickbait to get you to like or sub. So check us out for sure. Jax82 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says Xbox needs at quality enough of this not launch patched at a later date before you make sure this happens before you launch. No more excuses. I think Redfall is it. That is going to be the last trip or the fumble, if you will. They're not playing games anymore. RC Polygon drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, with Xbox still being in third and Sony still strong in Japan, I think Xbox could grab 2 Japanese studios. What I want is Square Enix and Sega, 2 fantastic picks. Inmatic Dreams drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, I'm gonna keep saying buy Square. He wants a new Parasite Eve, and so do I. That game was dope. Maxi Coleman drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, I want exclusive beta access, skins and operators in Call of Duty. If they want parity, make all the skins of Master Chief. Phil said it in the interview, you're not getting that. It's going to be across the board, everything. No one cares. They got Call of Duty. You're going to be able to play it in your Game Pass. There will be perks. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of perks a part of Game Pass Ultimate, but I don't think they're going to pull a Sony, and I'm kind of glad for it. It's fine. Let all the skins be available everywhere. You know what that means? More money for Microsoft, and whatever. Olga Bravo drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, we need Square so the salt keeps flowing. I love it. The slander of it all. But listen, Risk It, brother, thank you so much for joining us. Sell your brand. You do an amazing show. You have an outstanding panel. You got a new panel member. Tell everyone where they can check that out each and every Friday evening, which I believe is Saturday, actually, for you when you go live. Where can people subscribe, help you continue to grow your channel? More importantly, where can people reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on social media under Riskit4TB. It's not 4 terabytes. Although I'll give you 4 terabytes of opinion if you ask. And we go live 8 p.m. Friday EST. And if you're in Australia, I think it's 11 a.m. in the east and 8 a.m. in the west. Yeah, we have a great panel. Got a new panel member. That blue number, she is absolutely amazing. Met her at FanFest, had to get her on. She jumped on for full time. So yeah, we have a great time talking all this stuff, and this week's going to be really, really interesting. Here's another thing, and I love about your show as well, Boom, is that we don't always agree on everything.
Well, that's what it's the best part of it. It's a conversational podcast, and you're not supposed to all be robots and agree. What's the fun in that?
Exactly, and on the same page. And the best thing about these podcasts is you get new ideas, fresh takes, and understanding, but always genuine. And so just a quick shot at Jean Mark in the chat there. Anything I say is absolutely genuine. I think it. Hargeet is a man who can definitely attest to that. Whether it's right or wrong, if I say it, I think it. So I'm always genuine. Trust me. But Boom, it was absolutely fantastic to be on. I didn't think I was going to be able to make the whole show because I had family stuff going on, and you might have seen my toddler knocking at the door and him sitting on the lap for a little bit. But I'm glad I got to stay because this this is honestly one of the greatest conversations I've probably had in months. I mean, even my show, we have great conversations, but this one was really, really good. We got to dive into a lot of different things just based off that interview and some of the NPDs. So I really enjoy doing this, and I enjoy being on the show. And it's a bit sad that I can't make it on Boom Show as often as I'd like, but I'm always glad to be here. So thanks for having me on. And everyone in the chat, yeah, look, I'll post my channel thing, and if you want to go over there and subscribe, that'd be fantastic. If not, all good. Yeah, but thanks for having me on. It's good talking to you guys, as always.
Yeah, great to have you on, brother. Definitely got to do this again. Super appreciate it. And at some point, I'm going to guest on yours. It's just timing. In the evening, it's all dedicated to Mrs. Boom. You know, I do this 5 days a week, and sometimes it's difficult to get another night. But we will definitely work that out for sure. Great to have you here. Great conversation, honest, earnest conversation, and that is the best part of having you today. Kay Asante, let's sell your brand, because I talked about it before. Last Saturday's show was epic, dude. That panel was ridiculous. Everyone had great opinions. The most you've ever had in live viewers. Where can people subscribe to your channel, and more importantly, reach out to you on social media?
Well, first and foremost, you know, as you say, I am thankful that Risk It. Thank you for being here, man. It's always good to chat with you and get your opinions. You're not always right, but you think them deeply, and I love to disabuse you of your knowledge. Good job, sir. Good job.
We have some good conversations. We do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I appreciate you very much, and of course, the man Hargeet Chani. Always great to chat with you as well. Yeah, we're having some fun. We're talking we're having conversations on Saturdays. TKO Asante on Xbox, PlayStation, all those places. Gaming Circle Podcast, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Had a great conversation after the ABK deal kind of was finalized. We took somewhat of a victory lap. Everybody was there celebrating something. I was celebrating the fact that I didn't have to talk about it anymore. It was hilarious. It was fantastic. And there was a lot of slander in 5.3 hours of podcasting. Yes. So yes, it was a good time had by all. Come check us out. Check out the video. I think it's at like 8,000 views or something now. It's actually doing pretty well. So thank you guys
nice
who have already checked it out. So yeah, you know, and this week you guys will see us again, and we'll be back at it again with some probably some Mario versus Sonic debate. It's gonna be.
I'm sure that's definitely going to be a debate, no doubt about that. The games will be out for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. And last and no way least, Hargeet Chani, please, by all means, I tell you where you can't find them, social media, but where you could find them is on Xbox, on Discord, and regularly on and with Game On Daily with Asa and Gaz, Mr. Sauce Master himself. Talk about it. Where could people check that out? And more importantly, find you on the two small places in the world that's not social media. It's, of course, Xbox and, of course, Discord.
Yeah, so I'm H Chani on both. So gamer tag is H Chani on Xbox, and I guess it's just your tag or whatever it is on Discord. It's H Chani. No numbers needed, just H Chani. And then GameOnDaily.com, YouTube.com/GameOnDaily. Certainly had some fun on Saturday, and you can check that out. Also check out Gaz's channel, Septic Sauce. There's always going to be more sauce videos, and I'm sure you'll enjoy those.
Last couple have just been like legendary, like just so legendary off the top, and his laugh is infectious. It just really is. It's very pointing.
Yep. And then RDX, well, we couldn't do the one this week either. It's internet issues, but either way, like the bandwidth just isn't there where he is right now, so he's gonna have to figure out something. Maybe he has to move or get more whatever internet, but whatever. We'll hopefully get that back up and running shortly. But that's usually on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and then check out Primetime Gaming every Wednesday. We're here 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
Well, thank you so much for that. And of course, a big thank you to all the super chats and the channel memberships that continue to come in. They power the show, especially when it comes to the big giveaways. We have another $500 giveaway coming up in the first Friday of November. That is Mrs. Boom's birthday bash. Her birthday, you folks get the presents. We're giving away 10 $50 gift cards, and the big one, the biggest one we've ever done. Last year, we did a record-breaking $1,000 in 2 hours. This year, at Mrs. Boom's request, we are raising that by 50%. We are giving away in 2 hours for the 6th annual Mr. and Mrs. Boomstick Christmas with Mr. and Mrs. Boomstick, $1,500 in 2 hours. We are giving away 10 $100 gift cards and 2 grand prizes of 2 $250 gift cards. And that comes the way of all the super chats. We get them, we tuck them away, we take the channel memberships after Google gets their 30%, we tuck them away, and we have these big giveaways because, Mrs. Boom and I really want to do more for the community. And we understand that, it's right now fiscal times are hard, and we are very blessed, and we want to kind of pay it forward for the kind of success that we've had here on Double Barrel Gaming. And of course, folks, one last thing, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, Craig, I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.